If you look at the sermon title, you're probably thinking something's missing. Good and bad. It just feels like something's missing. Like, really, the sermon title should look more like this. Well, we're just going to look at good and bad today. We're going to look at good people and good things and bad things. So if you turn to 1 Kings chapter 22. 1 Kings chapter 22. This is the end of the book, so let me just take a moment and if you've ever wondered, why do we have a 1 Samuel and a 2 Samuel? It's just one story. Why do we have a 1 Kings and a 2 Kings? As a matter of fact, Joshua, Judges, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, 2 Kings is all one long story. So why do we have to have a half a dozen books? Because these were not originally books. Books, as we know them, did not come around until after the time of Jesus. Before then, they rolled on scrolls. A scroll is about 30 feet long, because any longer than that, it was too heavy. So 1 Kings is one scroll. 2 Kings is another scroll. So it's just, the story keeps right on going, but that's why we have and that, by the way, if you're wondering, that's why we have 1 Chronicles and 2 Chronicles. And if you're really wondering, yes, that's why, Job and Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, all those books are the same length. Do you know how long they are? Scroll length. You know why we have 12 minor prophets that are the same length as Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel? Maybe want to take a guess? Boy, some of you did not do well in school at all, did you? It was scroll length. And so it's not the end of the story, it's just that this was the end of the scroll. So we start off in the first 12 verses with a good message, a good word, but bad people. For 3 years, Syria and Israel continue without war. But in the third year, Jehoshaphat, how many of you ever, when you see Jehoshaphat in the Bible, you just think, jumping Jehoshaphat? You just aged yourself. So third year, Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, came down to the king of Israel. The king of Israel said to his servants, "Do you know that Ramoth Gilead belongs to us, and we keep quiet, do not take it out of the hand of the king of Syria?" He said to Jehoshaphat, "Will you go with me to battle at Ramoth Gilead?" And Jehoshaphat said to the king of Israel, "I am as you are, my people as your people, my horses as your horses." Now let's just kind of give a quick history. In 922 BC, Solomon has died, and there is a division of the kingdom. They split. 10 tribes go to the north and call themselves Israel. 2 tribes go to the south, call themselves Judah. Now, the Old Testament's confusing on its own. You add to the fact the word Israel might mean all of them, all 12 tribes. It could mean a dude whose name was originally Jacob that was changed to Israel. And sometimes it can mean the 10 northern tribes. So here's something that'll help you. In 1 Kings, after chapter 12 and all the way through 2 Kings, Israel is always the 10 northern tribes. So this is what we have. We have the 10 northern tribes, and they've been at battle. Ahab's their king. So Jehoshaphat goes down. Now you may be thinking, no, wait a second. You don't go down north. You go up north, you go down south, right? That's just how it goes. You always go down from Jerusalem, no matter which direction, because Jerusalem sits on a hill. So he goes down, heads north, and so the division between them is now to somewhat been healed. And so they're all going to go out to battle with Syria at Ramoth Gilead. So verse 5, Jehoshaphat said to the king of Israel, "Inquire first for the word of the Lord." I want to hear what God says before we go out to battle. Then the king of Israel gathered the prophets together, about 400 men, and said to them, "Shall I go to battle against Ramoth Gilead, or shall I refrain?" And they said, "Go up, for the Lord will give it into the hand of the king." But Jehoshaphat said, "Is there not here another prophet of the Lord to whom we may inquire?" Notice what he says, I don't know if I trust these guys. So verse 8, the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, "There is yet one man by whom we may inquire of the Lord, Micaiah the son of Imlah, but I hate him, for he never prophesies good concerning me, but evil. I'd rather surround myself with the guys that say good things." Jehoshaphat said, "Let not the king say so." Then the king of Israel summoned an officer, said, "Bring quickly Micaiah the son of Imlah." Now the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, were sitting on their thrones, arrayed in their robes, at the threshing floor at the entrance of the gate of Samaria. So they're showing off that they're kings. And all the prophets were prophesying before them. And Zedekiah the son of Kenana made for himself horns of iron and said, "Thus says the Lord, with these you shall push the Assyrians until they are destroyed." And all the prophets prophesied so and said, "Go up to Ramoth Gilead and triumph, for the Lord will give it into the hand of the king." Now, these prophets that he's gathered, they all say it's going to be good. God's going to make you healthy, wealthy, and wise. You'll never have any problems because they like their job with the king. They like the money that they get from the king. They like their status and stature. And so they say, these are not good people. In fact, these are false prophets. But there's something very fascinating about the Old Testament. Somebody take a guess how many times the words false prophet occur in the Old Testament? 74. Wrong. I'll tell you what, let's play like Price is Right. Lower. Who said 0? Yes, there's no award, but you're correct. 0. The Old Testament never uses the words false prophet. Do you know why? Because there's nobody that ever calls themselves a false prophet. They all cloak themselves as being true prophets. Just go online today and just do a search for false prophets and see how many videos come up where someone begins by saying, hello, I'm the false prophet of the day. I would like to share with you something that's in error. It doesn't happen. So they're just called prophets. And so these are bad people. They don't have the word of God, but instead they give a good word. Something like to say. And then we have the one guy, Micaiah, and it just cracks me up. The king says, I don't like him because he doesn't say nice things to me. There's a phrase for that. It's called suck it up, buttercup. But he said, I just want to surround myself with people that like me and say nice things about me. Sometimes the truth is going to hurt your feelings. Some of you either just don't like your feelings hurt or don't like the truth, but you can't have both. Sometimes the truth hurts. And so but I don't like him. But I do find it fascinating. He knows who he is, doesn't he? He says, but I don't like him. That's why he's not here. And so Joshua says, no, let's get him. And so all these prophets, boy, they just keep, they're really buttering up the king with everything is going to be great. We need to understand that people who claim to be speaking the truth but are false, they've been around a long time and they're still around today. As a matter of fact, here's what Jesus said. Matthew 7:15 and 16. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will recognize them by their fruits. Here's a picture of what they look like. Again, we need to understand there are a lot of people that may say something that sounds good and sound pleasant. That does not make it right. As a matter of fact, oftentimes, people that are not good will say things that are good to advance themselves, their own position. So that's these guys. So now we have a contrast. We have a good person, but he has a bad word. Verse 13. The messenger who went to summon Micaiah said to him, behold, the words of the prophets with one accord are favorable to the king. Let your word be like the word of one of them and speak favorably. He goes, hey, this is what you need to say. I'm just going to start. Has it ever bothered you when someone says, this is what you need to say? Okay, if you want me to say something, then don't invite me and then tell me what to say. If you think I might say something that's not right, then just don't invite me. Don't invite me and then give me the script. And so he says, but this is what you need to say. Verse 14, Micaiah said, as the Lord lives, what the Lord says to me, that I will speak. And when he had come to the king said to him, Micaiah, shall we go to Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall we refrain? And he answered him, go up in triumph. The Lord will give it into the hand of the king. Now, one of the challenges we face with the Bible is that it's in print. One of the challenges we face in life today is much of our communication is in print. And some people just don't get sarcasm. They just don't get it. I'm a professor at a graduate school for pastors, and our president said to me one time, he was very frustrated. He goes, I think God made 5% of the population with zero sense of humor. He said, if I do a blog that clearly is tongue-in-cheek, I'll get some emails. I can't believe a seminary president would ever say anything like that. It's like, man, what a horrible way to go through life with no sense of humor. Sometimes when we read the Bible, and because it's God's word, it's our authority in life, we believe it's inspired by God, we somehow get the idea there can never be anything sarcastic or humorous in it. The Bible has talking donkeys. That's not the funny part. The funny part is the dude talked back to the donkey. So this is sarcasm. And some of you get sarcasm. Some of you are like me. I speak English, Hebrew, and sarcasm is my heart language. It's how our family communicates with each other, and those who marry in either survive or struggle for decades. So he's not agreeing with them, he's being sarcastic. So verse 17, he just keeps rolling. Now he's going to share the truth. He said, I saw all Israel scattered on the mountaintops, as sheep that have no shepherd. And the Lord said, these have no master. Let each return to his home in peace, meaning the king is gone. And the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, did I not tell you that he would not prophesy good concerning me, but evil? And Micaiah said, therefore hear the word of the Lord. This is the truth. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing beside him on his right hand and on his left. So note the contrast now that we find here. In verse 10, where is the king sitting? On his throne, surrounded by his false prophets. What does Micaiah say? No, I'll tell you who the real king is. And I'll tell you where the real throne is. He is seated in heaven on his throne, and he is surrounded by the host of heaven, or the armies of heaven. They're the angelic host. So verse 20, the Lord said, who will entice Ahab, that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said one thing, and another said another. Then a spirit came forward and stood before the Lord, saying, I will entice him. And the Lord said to him, by what means? He said, I will go out and will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. So Micaiah is kind of ripping the king and ripping the prophets. He said, you are to entice him, and you shall succeed. Go out and do so. So he sends an angel to lead these false prophets, speak a false word, so they stand in contrast to the truth. Now, therefore, behold, the Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all of these, your prophets. The Lord has declared disaster for you. Man, it's no wonder Ahab doesn't like him. So verse 24, then Zedekiah, the son of Kenana, came near and struck Micaiah on the cheek. I love the way that the Bible, most translations make it really saying nice. Struck him on the cheek. He punched him in the face. Literally, that's what he did. He punched him in the face. So he punched him. He said, how did the Spirit of the Lord go from me to speak to you? Because he claims he's a true prophet. So verse 25, Micaiah said, behold, you shall see on that day when you go into an inner chamber to hide yourself. So when the enemy overruns and you go to try to hide yourself, you'll realize I'm right. And the king of Israel said, seize Micaiah and take him back to Ammon, the governor of the city, and to Joash, the king's son. And say, thus says the king, put this fellow in prison, feed him meager rations of bread and water until I come in peace. And Micaiah said, if you return in peace, the Lord has not spoken by me. And he said, hear all you people. Now, this whole, you'll see it happen, and if God didn't say this, you return in peace, God didn't speak to me, comes from Deuteronomy chapter 18. And basically, here's what it says. If someone makes a prediction that doesn't come to pass, you don't have to listen to them. If they tell you to serve false gods, you're to execute them. But they didn't execute people for being wrong. They just said, ignore them. That advice sounds good. If people are preaching something that's wrong, ignore them. Just move on to somebody that's preaching the truth. So we have Micaiah. Now, I want to set this in context. This is not a conversation between Micaiah, who is a good person, but delivering a message of judgment to a king. This is not two kings and Micaiah the prophet. There are all kinds of royal attendants. So we have two thrones with two kings. We have all their royal attendants around them. Then we have all of these prophets that are gathered. I don't know how many of them there are, but there's probably a whole bunch of them. So all these prophets together. So this is not a one-on-one sort of encounter. This is one man standing alone in the midst of all of these people, delivering a message that was unpopular at the time. On July 30th, so about 3 weeks ago, the NBA resumed. Orlando Magic forward Jonathan Isaac was the only one to stand for the national anthem. When asked about it later, he said, I don't think this is the answer. The answer to all of our problems is Jesus. So if the Orlando Magic ever show up to play in Phoenix, I may try to get him to come speak at our church. He is an ordained pastor. And I agree with him. This is the answer. Now, I don't really care what you think about standing or kneeling for the national anthem. And I don't want to hear about it after church. I don't care. And you don't need to know what I think about it. But this fact remains. In any situation in life, it is hard to stand alone. It is hard to kneel alone. It is hard to go against the flow, whatever the flow happens to be. It is much easier just to do what everybody else is doing. It would have been very easy for Micaiah to go with the flow, to say what all the other prophets said, to have stopped with his sarcastic comment and just been done. But he stood for the truth. It is not always easy to do what is right, especially if you're standing alone. I admire this man because he did what God said even when everybody else said to do something else. So I don't want to, sell it to you like it's easy. Sometimes you may be the only one. But don't ever bow to falsehood. Do what's right. Say what's right. Stand for what's right. Even if you're alone and even if people's feelings are hurt. But not only do we have bad people with a good word and a good person with a bad word, but sometimes, or a lot of times, bad people make bad decisions. So verse 29. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, went up to Ramoth Gilead. The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and go into battle, but you go ahead and wear all your regal robes. The king of Israel disguised himself and went to battle. So he said, I'll dress like a normal soldier. They'll think he is me and they'll kill him. So verse 31, now the king of Syria had commanded the 32 captains of his chariots, fight with neither small nor great, but only with the king of Israel. And when the captains of the chariots saw Jehoshaphat, they said, it is surely the king of Israel. So they turned to fight against him. And Jehoshaphat cried out. And when the captains of the chariots saw that it was not the king of Israel, they turned back from pursuing him. But a certain man drew his bow at random. So he just fired an arrow. But y'all know that when God's in charge, there's never anything that's random. And what happened? It struck the king of Israel between the scale armor and the breastplate. We would call this a miraculous shot. God guided the arrow. Therefore he said to the driver of his chariot, turn around and carry me out of the battle, for I am wounded. The battle continued that day, and the king was propped up in his chariot facing the Syrians until the evening he died. And the blood of the wound flowed into the bottom of the chariot. At about sunset, a cry went through the army, every man to his city, every man to his country. The head is gone. Everybody goes back to their homes, just like Micaiah had said. So verse 37, the king died and was brought to Samaria, and they buried the king in Samaria. And they washed the chariot by the pool of Samaria, and the dogs licked up his blood, and the prostitutes washed themselves in it, according to the word of the Lord that he had spoken. Now let's just stop right here. The prostitutes did not wash themselves in the king's blood. The pool that they got the water from to wash out the chariot is the pool where the prostitutes would wash. Okay, so I just want to clarify that for you, because it would be gross otherwise, and weird and unnatural and would serve no purpose. So this is the blood from the pool of Samaria is where they wash out the blood, and the dogs are licking that part up. If you go back and read chapter 21, verse 19, Elijah told Ahab, you'll die and the dogs will lick your blood by the pool of Samaria, because he was a true prophet. So, verse 39, the rest of the acts of Ahab and all that he did, and the ivory house that he built, and all the cities they built, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? So Ahab slept with his fathers, and Ahaziah his son reigned in his place. Now, what Ahab does is just ridiculous. He thinks he can fool God by disguising himself. Be like this. Now y'all don't know who I am. You'll go, please. Well, we're just as goofy sometimes the way we think we can hide our sin from God. If I turn the lights off, God won't see what websites I'm going to. Or if I stay up late enough, or I get up early enough, or whatever it may be. If I don't tell anybody that I'm slipping money from work, nobody will ever know. And I justify it in my mind because they ought to be paying me more, and so God would approve of me stealing. I mean, we do the same silly stuff. You do know that God sees everything you do. God knows everything you think, and He still loves you. Trust me, if the rest of us knew everything you think, none of us would love you. But God still loves us. You can't hide from God. And this is a double-edged sword. The frightening part is you can't hide from God. The good news is you can never get lost from God. He always knows us and where we are. And so Ahab makes this foolish decision. What he should have done was repent, and obey what God has said through his prophet. But he does not, because he makes a bad decision. He pays for it with his life. And there's still people, and it's going to be this way until Jesus comes back. And don't think you can hide it from us. You can hide stuff from your spouse. You can hide stuff from everybody, but you can't hide anything from God. Come clean, and he will forgive you. That's what we should do. And then, beginning of verse 41, good people make good decisions, mostly. Verse 41, Jehoshaphat, the son of Asa, began to reign over Judah in the 4th year of Ahab, king of Israel. Jehoshaphat was 35 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 25 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Azubah, the daughter of Shilhi. He walked in all the way of Asa his father, did not turn aside from it, doing what was right in the sight of the Lord. Yet the high places were not taken away, and the people still sacrificed and made offerings on the high places. Jehoshaphat also made peace with the king of Israel. Now, the rest of the acts of Jehoshaphat and his might that he showed and how he warred, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? And from the land he exterminated the remnant of the male cult prostitutes. Those were male prostitutes for Baal, who remained in the days of his father Asa. There was no king in Edom, a deputy was king. Jehoshaphat made ships of Tarshish to go to Ophir for gold, but they did not go, for the ships were wrecked at Etzion-Geber. Then Ahaziah, the son of Ahab, said to Jehoshaphat, let my servants go with your servants in the ships. But Jehoshaphat was not willing. Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers, the city of David his father, and Jehoram his son reigned in his place. Now Jehoshaphat's a man that God mostly approves of, does a lot of good things, but I want you to see two things about Jehoshaphat. Let's start with the less serious one. He tries to emulate Solomon. Solomon built ships, sent them off from Etzion-Geber, and then he brought back lots of gold. That's one of the ways that he made all of his money and his wealth. So Jehoshaphat tries it. It doesn't work. You know, sometimes even the best people make some mistakes. Okay, none of you. So that means you must be bad people who do nothing but make mistakes. Even the best of people sometimes make mistakes. Sometimes we do. They're not sinful. Sometimes we just make mistakes. Call somebody by the wrong name, or I don't know how many times I've gotten home and I bought the wrong thing. And I'm instructed yet again that I made a mistake. It's a cool thing about video contacts, like, hey, which one of these 87 versions am I supposed to get? But all of us make mistakes, okay? And so that's why I describe this as a good person, not a perfect person. So Jehoshaphat, all of us make some mistakes. Some of you would do well to just relax a little bit and quit trying to be perfect. And quit getting frustrated when you don't make it. You're going to make mistakes. It's all right. Just let them go. But there's a more serious thing that he does. He doesn't remove the high places, according to verse 43. You see, even good people sometimes disobey God. And there is a distinction. Mistakes are just we make mistakes, and it happens. This is not a mistake. This is an act of disobedience to God. Even good people still sin. Even good people still disobey God. Even the best of people still don't get it all right. That's why over the last couple of months, you know, these are flawed heroes. When you read about the people in the Bible, even the best people still have issues. Still have issues. We need to be very careful that we don't paint them as either absolute sinners or absolute saints. Even the people that God compliments, like Jehoshaphat, still have issues, and the Bible puts them out there. Here's the good news for you about that. That means that you don't have to be perfect in order to serve the Lord. You don't have to be perfect in order to be pleasing to the Lord. The other part of that is when you do disobey, we have a loving and gracious God who will forgive us. Now, forgiveness is not a get-out-of-jail-free card that means I can sin all I want to, and then at midnight before I go to sleep, go, hey, Jesus, could you forgive me? It doesn't work like that, obviously. But when we sin, we have an advocate with the Father. I have become convinced over the years, just dealing with so many people, that one of the primary tactics of our enemy is to try to hold our sin over us, even the sin for which we've been forgiven. Oh, God won't use you because you did this 20 years ago. Oh, how in the world would God use anybody that would say that or think that or do that? And He uses our own sin to beat us down. You are not perfect. I am not perfect. Come on, Wade, Greg, help me out here. I was expecting like a standing. None of us are perfect. Quit judging each other by standards we're not going to keep. That's not to say we shouldn't strive, but don't stop serving God because you think you're unworthy. You are unworthy, but God will use you anyway. That's the beauty of grace and forgiveness. And so Jehoshaphat, he's a good guy. He is a role model, but no role models are perfect. And let me just extend this. Even role models you find today or role models you find in history, they are not perfect. If we take down every statue to every person in all of history that's had a flaw, we have no statues left. Take down every memorial, we don't. As a matter of fact, you might as well throw away everything you inherited from your family, because let me tell you, your ancestors, they weren't perfect either. So to me, I find it very encouraging that God does not demand perfection before He can use me. God will use me as imperfect as I am. So, good people make mostly good decisions. It's the general flow of their life, but they're not perfect. And Jehoshaphat is a good example. Let me see if I can help us kind of give you what's in. Let's suppose that you decide you want to go to a concert for one of your favorite bands. So you go to the concert, and the band plays, and it's Demon Hunter. It's one of my favorite bands, if you're wondering. Just for those of you who don't know, I like very slow, calm, reflective music. Not. They have one song out of like 10 albums that my wife likes. One. It's head-banging, loud, aggressive, the way God intended it to be. So, let's say you go to the concert, and during an hour and a half set, they play a couple of wrong notes. And someone says, "Hey man, how was the concert?" I heard that B flat, which should have been B natural. Ruined the whole thing. Matter of fact, I'm going to delete all their music off my phone, my tablet, my hard drive. I'm getting rid of it. How in the world could I just don't want a band that missed a note in a concert. That'd be ridiculous. Man, it was great. Yeah. They missed it. One of the intros just didn't click like it should have, or the band stopped and the singer kept going. It happens. But you don't go, I'm never going to listen to them again, right? That was good. That is the Christian life. That's your life and mine. We want to play it right, but when we hit wrong notes, God still enjoys us and still uses us for His glory. So you have people who are bad. They always make it sound good. They're always false prophets. God has called us, even when everybody's moving one way, to stand for the truth, just like Micaiah. But don't think that this is a contrast between bad people and all bad decisions, good people, all good decisions. Ahab probably did a few good things. Jehoshaphat did some bad. Relax. This is why we believe so strongly in grace. Because, like Jehoshaphat, sometimes we let the high places remain. Then look at the last couple of verses. Ahaziah, the son of Ahab, began to reign over Israel and Samaria in the 17th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and he reigned 2 years over Israel. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord and walked in the way of his father and in the way of his mother and in the way of Jeroboam the son of Nebat. The words father and mother just means ancestors. Should have actually been like a couple great-granddads. He served Baal and worshipped him, provoked the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger in every way that his father had done. Why do we have these verses just sort of dropped in here? You know why, don't you? Because all the people before us, they weren't perfect. And we have not learned as we should from the past. They should have learned from those that went before, but unfortunately, they have not. I wish my children would have learned from all of my mistakes, but they did not. I wish I would have learned from all my dad's mistakes, but I did not. I'm not going to say my mom made mistakes. I'm smarter than that. We have a tendency not to learn as we should from seeing what has happened in the past. But I want to come down this case. I want to drive this point home. I've known way too many Christians that feel defeated all the time because they're not perfect. We are not a collection of the perfect. We are a collection of the redeemed. And those who have disobeyed God but have discovered the glorious forgiveness that's in Jesus Christ want to serve Him even when we do it imperfectly. And one of the things that I've worked on over the years is to try not to size people up quite as much as I did when I was younger. Because we have a tendency to see them either as good or bad, and that's it. We tend to sometimes set them to a standard that we don't even hold ourselves. You're aware that everybody in our church that serves, and the goal of our church is for everybody to be serving. That's sort of our mission philosophy. None of us are perfect. We make mistakes, sometimes that are innocent, and sometimes we do things that are disobedient to God. We don't gather because we got it all right. We gather because we've been forgiven by Jesus Christ. We sing because we've been forgiven by Jesus Christ. We serve because we've been forgiven by Jesus Christ. We are not perfect. We are forgiven. And when we get to heaven, we're not going to celebrate that we are perfect. We're going to celebrate that we have been forgiven. Because He has redeemed us from every tribe, tongue, people, and nation. Forever we will sing the glories of Jesus Christ because we have been forgiven by Him. We have never been and never will be perfect, but we are forgiven and redeemed. We are like Jehoshaphat. So I want to encourage you, rejoice that you've been forgiven. Strive to serve. And when you blow it, Jesus will forgive you.